Good evening, everyone! Yan, medyo naka-mute pa pala ako. So, magandang gabi lahat and welcome to the 7th episode. Wow, lucky 7 na tayo, di ba? 7th episode ng Usapang Training. At iba pa.
Iba
Ate ba pa?
pa.
Nakamute din ako.
Of
Alright.
course, we have our regulars here. Let's have them introduce themselves. So, Ed, would you like to say good evening?
Magandang gabi po mga katropang trainers. Welcome to another episode of Usapang Training at iba pa. Ako si Edwin Hebreo, isa sa mga trustees ng Philippine Society for Talent Development at CEO of Executive Serve Corporation. Louis
Banta po, CEO and Chief Trainer of LJMB Consulting and proud volunteer of PSTD.
Hi everyone, mga katropa, AM Villaluz po, Learning Manager ng Vistaprint Manila and PSTD Board Secretary ng taong ito. Welcome back.
Thank you. So, ako po si Pearl Martinez. I am the Global L&D Manager for SGS & Co. and currently the Chair of the Membership Committee of the PSTD. Okay, so exciting. Lagi namang exciting ang ating mga episodes dito dahil sa Usapang Training at iba pa. So, ngayon, alam natin that we just celebrated Women's Day. And it's part of Women's Month this March. And to cap off our celebration of Women's Month here in Usapang Training at iba pa, of course, we've invited two of the most influential and most knowledgeable, two of the most knowledgeable HR ladies, yan, mga ladies in talent development, diba, to talk about their journey in talent development. But before I introduce them, of course, I'm going to give the floor to AM for our Balitang PSTD.
Ayan, saglit tayo, Balitang PSTD. Right. May time pa po if you have not registered for our March Tipanan. Sakto-sakto po ang topic, Fostering Inclusion in Talent Development. That is next week. This is through Zoom. So, March 30. Ayan, pwedeng mag-register pa and join the session. We have Joselle Tech as our resource speaker. And a few of the courses we have lined up in April, Designing Hybrid Learning course to be facilitated by Lawrence Ko and Marvita Bungar. Part po ito na ating PSTD Master Trainer Certification Program. Ayan. And Learning and HR Analytics to be facilitated by the Six Sigma guy himself, Rex Jason Tuozo. Very interesting topic. And through Zoom din po ito. Data is always, we always talk about how data is important in learning and HR. So this is a great session to kind of get started. Paano ba? Paano ba natin incorporate ito? Ayan. And of course, April with April Salonga for facilitating digital learning. Ayan. And other events coming up, we would like to really encourage people to please send in your nominations kahit sarili nyo if you meet the criteria for learning professional, learning leaders, programs or organizations or companies for the Gawad Maestro Awards. Ito po ang premier learning awards sa Pilipinas, and you can check our website for more details, and we are now accepting nominations. And of course, our first Talent Development Research Conference. Marami tayong activities under PSTD, but this is the first time that we are conducting a Talent Development Research Conference. So we are accepting papers until on or before April 15. Ayan, check the website for more details. And Norman, I know there's an email where they can send queries and the entries too. You can also pa-add na lang please sa chat. Ayan. And if you haven't yet mga katropa, we have Breakthrough Conquering Limitless Possibilities, our 48th National Convention. First time nating mag-hybrid, mag-face-to-face since the pandemic. So we're really talking about how we're breaking barriers, no? This year especially in talent development. So avail po the super early bird rate. I think it's still available at this time. Ayan. So check our page for more inquiries. Of course, our third Talent Development Summit also upcoming sa May. And after March, in April, humanda na po tayo for our face-to-face tipanan, the Talent Development Professional as a preferred internal consultant. Two of our katropas here will be our resource speakers, si Ed and si Louis. So very exciting April events coming up for all of you. And that's it. That's the Balitang PSTD.
Habol ko lang, AM, kung pwede. Yung pong ating merchant partnership program, meron na pong 7 companies na approved. And inaayos lang po natin sa website siguro in a week or 2 ay yung ating pong mga members ay makaka-avail na ng mga discounts doon po sa ating mga merchant partners. And we'll have more kasi magiging available na through our website yung application to be a merchant partner. Those who are willing to give discounts, preferential rates to PSTD members, that makes our PSTD membership card very, very powerful. Yun lang from the membership community.
And also, just to remind, di ba may mga members pa dito na hindi pa nakukuha yung kanilang membership kit, di ba? Ang ganda-ganda ng membership kit. May mug, may notebook, may stickers, may pen.
Baka nagtataka sila, Pearl, kung ba't di pa nila nakukuha. Baka hindi pa sila nagsasubmit ng ID. Para yung soft copy ng inyo pong ID na ikakabit doon sa kanilang membership card ID kasi kasama yon. Kasama yun sa i-deliver sa kanila na membership kit.
Tama. At saka kailangan nilang isend yun dun sa secretariat ng PSTD at isa-send sa inyo yung inyong membership kit with the membership ID. Di ba? Ganda-ganda. Okay. Okay. So, now back to our topic. So first, let me introduce our two speakers, guest speakers for today. We have 2 of the most influential and renowned women in the Philippine HR and the Philippine talent development community. Okay, so the first one we have Olive Ybanez. So Miss Olive is currently the HR director of Teleperformance. So she also currently sits at the board of TP Women PH and is the disability lead for the TP Global DEI. So her passions range from coaching, mentoring, and most recently, she has really taken on the cudgels for DEI in the different companies that she is part of. And she also runs her passion project of hashtag ang 10K Libro, where she sends donated books to the public school libraries and barangays in provinces. So if you are a TD professional and you want to help our schools in the barangays and in the provinces, you can contact Miss Olive for that project. Of course, we also have with us another stalwart of the talent development community. We have Miss Fabi Carino, di ba? Ang tawag ko nga sa kanya, the Fabulous, kasi Fabi talaga sa Fabulous Fabi. So she's a multi-awarded HR and training professional. So ang dami na nitong awards. She has conducted countless talks, right? And I know that recently she has taken on wellness as one of her passion projects, di ba? But she's currently the country HR director for a leading digital and creative agency. So she's worked with various companies, multinational and global companies, as training and development leader. And she's also instrumental in creating the ABS-CBN university, right? And she set up the film, TV, digital, and journalism academies of ABS-CBN. And currently awarded as one of the top 12 most influential HR leaders in Asia. So, ladies, gentlemen, and others, let's all give our warm welcome to our speakers for today, Miss Olive Ybanez and Miss Fabi Carino. Yan. Siyempre, hindi natin naririnig ang mga palakpakan. Yeah. Welcome, Fabi. Welcome, Olive. Would you like to say hello to our participants for today or our viewers for today?
Yeah.
Hi everyone. I'm really excited to be part of this Sunday evening show of you guys, no? Akala ko ano to Saturday. Sabi ko, wow, Sunday, very dedicated people in PSTD. And of course, I'd like to welcome everyone who's joining us tonight. I already see people coming in and people who were interested beforehand. So I'd like to tell you that, you know, we are going to share you a lot of valuable insights from our experiences kasi batang-bata kami, no? So marami kaming ma-share. Masasabi ko sa iyo yan, di ba, Pearl?
Correct. Okay. So, hi, Olive.
Hi, and good evening to everybody. And I am so happy to be in this crowd. Like Fabi said, no, Sunday night. And we are all here learning something. So this truly is a training and development environment.
Yeah.
And it tells me that, you know, everybody here, you're in the right space. Looking forward to having a conversation with everyone tonight.
Okay, great. So let's jump into the first question. Siguro, being women, like what inspired you to pursue a career in talent development, and what motivated you to become a leader? You're a leader in this field. Is it because HR
Abby,
tayo?
you take it first.
Okay, I'll start. You know, getting into training, of course, years ago, hindi pa to talent dev. It was called training and development. You know, I stumbled across this field accidentally. I came from Baguio. No, I graduated from St. Joe University, and then at a young age, I was already in Manila at 19. And then I had a friend who would conduct programs for a career center. Isa lang yung career center called noon. I don't want to say the name anymore. Wala na yata yun ngayon. Anyway, what happened was, coincidentally, he couldn't make it to conduct a training program for secretaries. And then ako naman, ang dream ko talaga sa totoo lang, Pearl, was to become a studio reporter. You know, when you're young, you're in front of the camera. I like that. Sabi ko, I like to do that. And so when I was given this chance to get into training for the first time, and at the time I had to go to the library, buy books. There was no Google at all. I have to create my own way of designing my programs with acetates and all that. Believe it or not, acetates pa ang tawag doon. I'm sure the Gen Z don't know what acetates are. They're in the Museum of Training now. Dapat may Museum PSTD yung mga ginagamit natin. Acetates talaga yon. And I ended up, substituting a friend of mine. And when I got into this, when I started training, and I love being in college kasi mahilig ako magkipag-debate, yung presentation. I really love that. So when I got into training, I said, wow, this is something that I really like doing. And then when I got into the pharmaceutical industry, I was in sales for around 2.5 years. Then I moved up the ladder as a sales trainer immediately. And at the time, as I've said, I saw the impact, how it can create the skills and knowledge and competencies of people. And of course, you know, fast forward, many companies after 10 years in the pharmaceutical industry, I was with the BPO industry, and now I'm still again in the BPO, by the way. 10 years din ako hindi natulog, per like you. So 10 years in the
Hanggang ngayon.
pharmaceutical, 10 years, 10 years akong nagna-night shift and mid shift and all that. I really saw how it transformed me and transformed others. No, I feel that every time I train, I also learn a lot. I learn to be, I learn from people's experiences because, you know, as trainers, we really also have to have that listening skills. And so I would say that made me who I am now as a talent development professional, being able to make an impact in the same manner that I get to meet a lot of people in the different sorts of field that I have gotten into and learning from them myself. And I would say this is something that I made my passion and mission in life. It is to make an impact to people's lives in their professional lives and personal lives. That's why I am here right now. I would say it's really like my bloodline years ago and until now. Even if I'm in HR, I am still handling the talent development of my organization. So
Okay.
that in a nutshell, from substituting
Nutshell pa
someone
yun,
in
no?
training, from substituting someone in training until further looking into a deeper side and making it more existential in effect.
Okay. All right. How about you, Olive? Parang in a nutshell.
In
In
a
a
nutshell, Del.
nutshell.
In
I
10
think it was
sentences,
good.
Olive.
Yeah, no, but I think nobody really, during our time, nobody really starts work and says, I'm going to do training. I'm going to do development essentially. No? Because usually the idea is sa school ka pag ganyan.
Oo,
Diba?
correct.
Not in corporate. So actually when I entered corporate training, kulang na lang kicking and screaming. Believe it or not, the training director at the time, Christine Donovan, I owe a lot of getting started here to her because she was the first one who insisted that I should go into that open post. And she was like, you pinch hit like Fabi, walang trainer. So she had to take
Correct.
over. And it was the same when our trainers at that time had to travel from the US, BPO. So your trainers travel from the US and all of that. And he couldn't come for some reason, or I think he was going to be a week late. And we can't have the trainee sitting and doing doing nothing. And so they said, oh, can you take over for the class? And it was a very technical class. It was WorldSpan, the old airline booking system. And I said, well, okay, so it's a good thing that it came from the travel industry. So I'm very familiar with the tool. But teaching it was a different story altogether. So I had to go and like Fabi, learn on my own. How am I going to do this? This is going to be boring for people, etc., etc. And luckily, I made it. And then from that time on, they made me, quote unquote, the pinch hitter. If the trainer is not available, bigla, they will say, can you step in and teach it? So I had to learn really fast. But at that time, I was supervisor for operations. And then the training director, Christine, said, you know what, you're doing a lot of this coaching and then you're running operations and then you also do product training. Why don't you just join my team so I can pay you the right amount? And I said, well, I think I'm getting paid more in ops. But she said, no, just try it. But in the long run, I gave in and I said, okay, I will, but I see that there's an opening for corporate training, not product training. And I said, if I'm going to move, it's going to be teaching leadership and management. And she was like, no, but the promotion, the movement is faster if you're on the client side. But I said, if I'm going to go into training, my dream is no longer to shape agents because I already trained a lot of people and a lot of supervisors on the floor that can do that. My dream is that one day the BPO will be led by Filipino leaders. And so I needed to be in corporate training to be able to do that. And so when I moved formally into training, it really was for leadership and management development. And the rest, as they say, is history. And I am happy to say that I've met the dream many times over. In fact, some of my trainers were also assigned overseas to be leading teams there, leading operations there. And I think for me, if I go back and think about, okay, how is it that I did not graduate from, an education background? My major is business and hotel and restaurant management. But the idea of you cannot teach if you are not a learner yourself. So you have to keep learning. And that's, I would say, the secret sauce, aside from really wanting to develop people. Those two have to be there minimum in order for you to be able to do the things that you need to do as a development practitioner. So that's how I got into it. So whenever I see Christine or see her online, I keep going back to say, if you didn't talk to me about it, then I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't even think of into learning and development.
That's
So that's my
great.
story in a nutshell.
Yeah. Great experiences. So you're both, well, not only talent development professionals, but basically like HR leaders, right? So you take care of everything in HR, not only talent development. So what have been your strategies, or what have been your insights in terms of like how do you attract and retain talent from like underrepresented groups? Like the study for women, talagang we found out that women really are underrepresented, right? I mean, we do have a very good statistics on the gender gap here in the Philippines, but we found out that, well, women mostly leave. Like one of the issues of women is that not only do they get in, but when they are in the company, most of them, when they get married, right? They get married, when they have a family, they would tend to leave. So what have been your strategies for attracting and retaining these underrepresented groups?
I'll start.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
Fabi.
I'll start. Okay. Right now I work in a company that embraces work from home. So we're permanent work from home. And I think that that opportunity for all of us to work from home permanently has established a way for our mothers to have that balance or work-life integration. Of course, it's not easy, I'm telling you, because when you're working from home, it entails discipline, it entails focus. But I think that in the last 4 years, when we have started this pandemic and we saw the feasibility of working from home, and it really paved the way for all of us to be creative in the way we work, and be in being able to work in the same manner, that being able to attract more investors in different parts of Asia, like Philippines, to be an area where they could hire people, directly communicating or servicing abroad. So in a nutshell, again, I'd like to say working from home is one of the things that has really made an impact in the company that I work for, because it's permanent work from home. And we just started this last 4 months ago. It's pretty new. We're adjusting, we're learning, I'm creating policies to ensure that we are able to provide them the tools of trade, the equipments, but likewise the soft skills that's needed. So every month I conduct programs on mental health, since that's my advocacy, Mind Your Mind. I have a lot of mental health programs, and I've divided 2 programs for leaders, and I have a mental health program for everyone, because it's different when you're a leader and you're managing talents under you. You have to make sure that you also start with yourself. So I've also designed those kinds of programs. So aside from the work from home, the learning and development, which is of course the soft skills, for me right now, I have given more priority with wellness. It has to start with wellness, because if you don't have a sound mind or body, you cannot be able to work and properly function at all. For me, that's secondary, learning the skills, but it's also ensuring that everybody has that sense of purpose when they also work in the company and not just working to earn money. So it all entails a lot of finding a program that suits well for the organization. Lastly, I think what worked well is leadership development. We need to ensure that, just like Olive, I was a leadership development manager for a BPO company, and the strategy all the time then, if you manage the middle management team, it really makes an impact to the rest of your group. And if you want to have diversity and inclusion in the organization, it always starts with the leaders, their mindset, and the way they embrace the diversity amongst people and how it is being represented from the different groups. And I always believe that women leaders, Filipino leaders, are now getting an advantage nowadays, and I really support that. I like the fact that more and more women are coming out from their shell and becoming leaders in your organization. Right? Like you, Pearl, being an idol, global head ka na ng organization, diba? So, yeah, those are the things that I am currently working on. Of course, there were a lot of things that I've tried, but in terms of diversity and inclusion, which is such a buzzword for the last 2 years here in the Philippines, particularly, there's a lot of work to be done. And there's a lot of knowledge dissemination that needs to be done for all of us to learn how to design programs to ensure that it's not lip service, but rather it's sincere, deliberate programs that works well for your organization.
Yeah. How about you, Olive? I mean, you've taken on DEI like for the past 10 years. So what do you think are the strategies that work in terms of like retaining and attracting yung mga either hindi lang women, di ba? We have a lot of underrepresented groups.
Well, one is, I'll highlight 5, no? One is personal practice, even in my own teams. So when I was still with L&D, I was leading the L&D team of Teleperformance and even Aegis. One of the things that I always practiced was whenever there was a hiring happening, I will never, when somebody comes to me for the final interview, I never look at the resume. Why? Because I recognize that I have certain biases. No matter what I do, I will have certain biases, just like everybody else. And so I didn't want to look at the resume before I speak to the person, because I don't want to have a lens going in that prejudices already. So ayoko makita what school they come from, if they're married, not married, babae, lalaki. In fact, I just say, okay, tell me when the interview is going to be, I'll show up, and then I'll start asking questions. That also helped focus my questions on, one, competency. Second, really getting to know the person, giving that person space to speak about himself or herself. And then as the conversation goes, that's when I go back to check on the resume. But siguro, if I look at the entire interview, I would say 90% of the time, I'm just talking to the person and understanding. And then looking at the resume is like 10%, because I trust that my managers have understood the memo that when we look for talent, we have to make sure that we have a variety of applicants that we look through, and we look at the competence and not, the person, or if they're married, have kids, walang ganon. So I trust them enough, and so far they've been delivering. And that's one thing that I make sure I practice. And second, regularly, I look at the mix of my own team. Because if I'm going to go out and tell the leaders that you have to make sure that your teams are as diverse and as inclusive as you can make it, and they look at my team and they see that they're all women, or they're all young, or they're all old, or what have you, or they're all from the same university as I am, then, you have to walk the talk. So I regularly look at it. Even work experience, I'm very particular about not getting just people who come from the BPO space. I say, get somebody from logistics if they happen to be competent. Get somebody from the education field if they happen to be very competent. Why not? If they can make it, then we hire them, right? So those are the first two. The third is from, I think, 2004. I've always loved looking at the headcount report. And our HR managers before were like, headcount report, titingnan mo na naman. And I would make comments on, bakit parang ang konti ng babae dito? Bakit parang sobrang dami lalaki dito? Not that I was looking to put in changes or systems that would change it, but to me, because it wasn't part of my turf at the time, it was just raising the conversation and saying, hey, did you know that? Did you know that? And why is it not like this? Why is it not like that? So that's the third one. The fourth one is educating the entire environment. Because I can keep talking about it, but when there is no education happening for people, it's hard for them to think, number one, may problema nga ba? And I remember very distinctly, it was women leaders that I spoke with when we were formally launching our women's group in the organization. And two of them actually said, teka sandali, wala naman tayong problema sa mga babae dito. In fact, if may problema, sana hindi ako director, sana hindi ako VP. But that told me that people tend to equate their experience as the experience of all. And that took a lot of education to tell people, your experience is unique to you. Your challenges is unique to you. Kung may lamang ka lang na 1% over the next person from the time that you're a child, ang laki ng layo mo pag naging adult ka na in terms of opportunities that are open to you. And so we need to be very sensitive about that. And then the fifth is make sure that there are systems, either I support or I implement. And one of those is podcasts. I do a lot of podcasts. Actually, I'm one of the main hosts of the podcast for the organization. And I'm very picky in terms of the topics that we cover. We make sure that our topics cover very diverse conversations. We have LGBT conversations. We have parents, solo parents, disability conversations, even conversations about, how do I budget as an agent? And we make sure that our guests are coming from the highest positions in the organization all the way to trainees to make sure that they feel included and that their voice matters. Ultimately, as a DE&I practitioner and as a development person, my goal or my mission, I think, is really just to create those spaces for people and invite them in. Minsan yun lang kailangan just invite them para maisip nila na, pwede pala akong magsalita. Pwede pala akong mangarap. Valid pala yung iniisip ko dito sa lugar na to. So creating those spaces is very important. So those are the five things.
Earlier on mute.
Great strategies from both. So I'd like to get naman some comments from AM and Louie and Ed.
Si Ed may question siya actually, pero mag-follow up din ako after Ed. Sige, go Ed.
Sige, Ed.
Yeah. Kasi ito yung tanong ko kasi having worked with different clients and companies, may mga managers na itong trabaho to pambabae, itong trabaho to panlalaki. And I those are, and sometimes even if they don't say that, makikita mo sa kanilang mga decisions na parang parang naka-box in yung like when they choose a certain gender. Kasi ito gaya nung sinasabi maraming babaeng sa workforce ng Pilipinas. I just talked to foreigners yesterday and say one of the things that they admire in the Philippines is that maraming babae sa workplace as compared to their countries. Pero yun nga, parang parang naka-pigeonhole yung mga tao. How do we change that? In a way, sinagot ni Olive yun kanina, but if you want to expound on that,
Iba nga Ed, sabi mo nga, they appreciate that the men allow the women to work.
Sabi ko, parang wala, di naman yata nasabi sa usapan yung gano'n.
Okay, so anybody, either Olive. So Olive, siguro, you could answer.
Yeah, I'd like to take a first shot on that. I agree. Meron talagang gano'n. Whether explicitly they say it or they kind of pretend that they don't prefer the men to be taking on the work. You call them into a conversation. And I think our leaders do that pagka napapansin nila na parang teka sandali. There was actually an incident where ang sabi, bakit puro babae itong resume na pinadala mo sa amin? And the person that sent the resume, quiet lang, parang, sige po, maghahanap kami ng iba pang candidate na lalaki. And ang akin is, the first response should have been because they were the most competent one among those that submitted. Granted, walang lalaki doon sa listahan, which is also mali, no? But I think the first reaction of the leader na bakit puro babae ito, nasan yung mga lalaki, that should have alerted the person na teka, tingnan natin, may pananaw ba dito? Is there a perspective here that we need to correct and look into? So calling them into that conversation and having that conversation. No? The other is, I actually, have a conversation around ano ba ang trabaho talaga? And what is it that you need from the person in terms of their experience and their training, their foundation, that would make them more successful? And are those things necessarily exclusive to the male experience? Kasi oftentimes, that kind of conversation kind of snaps them back to reality na, oo nga naman, ano? Hindi nga naman. And so yung mga ganon. But I will have to say, not all leaders, especially the higher they are always open to being called into a conversation like that. So it is difficult. But if you keep trying it and you try to kind of slowly shift the environment, it becomes a normalized conversation, which I think is very important.
AM, how about you? Any comments on the inputs of these two lovely ladies?
Yeah, since kanina pa, talagang the wheels are turning in my head. So, Fabi, tama ka, the environment really has to change to attract, more women, because like it or not, especially in our culture, we're also the primary caregivers usually, or caretakers for our families and family members. It's just a reality. And if it requires the organization to kind of afford that kind of flexibility, but it's sometimes perceived as ang hassle, diba? Parang I have to change policy, or, like what are some of the ways or what are factors that can help convince companies to make this kind of adjustments and investments to involve and get women more involved in the workplace and aspire for more positions or higher positions because it is now more flexible and available to them.
I think related also to the first question earlier of Edwin, I used to work in the pharmaceutical industry where when I was probably on my second year as a training specialist at the time, our highest level head was male back then, said that moving forward, we will all just get males because I don't like them getting maternity leaves and maternity benefits. Second, nawawala sila sa field. And, this work that we do, we go around the Philippines or go to the doctors so that they can be able to speak to their clients and all that. And, the mindset was really fixed. And I did not personally agree with it. When I called him out personally with it, he told me honestly that, Fabi, wala kang alam dito. Ako mas matagal na sa'yo dito. So, sunod ka na lang. Diba? So, how could you do that? Like, in that kind of environment na yung pinakamataas na leader ninyo, ganun na, how would you do that? So, what we did also was that there were some product managers who were more on getting a balanced number. We actually first had a study on what would be the best fit or what would be the best fit for our organization. I think for leaders who are very fact-driven, you have to have studies to prove that. You cannot just say, No, kumuha tayo ng babae kasi ganito sila, masipag sila. Lalo na pag solo parents, di ba? And, I'm a solo parent. And so, they would always say na, pag solo parent, masipag yan, ganon. May mga bias, may positive bias, may negative bias. And so, I think what really worked out well at the time, wala pa kaming Google that time, no? We had to make a study. Sino dito ang mga top sellers, and in that company, most of our top sellers goes to Germany for a month. And we had to actually study the attributes and the gender, and there was a mix. And you cannot really fully say that males were better than females, solo parents were better than the single ones, because there was diverse competencies, and it was really all a matter of comparing it. And we had to come up with a top 3 study na what are the competencies that we are looking for. So dun pa lang, late 1990s yan, we said, competency framework would help out. And I think that if we want to, with your question, Anna, with regard to how do we encourage more women to be, to be in the corporate ladder, to be up in the leadership team, I think right now we are in that capacity to inspire a lot of women, for that matter. We need to speak up more. Funny thing is, there are instances when you speak up more as a woman, meron naman bias about you, that you are aggressive. Diba? That you are difficult, that you are letter B. Diba? Just because we're able to talk about it and ask the questions that are uncomfortable. But I'd like to tell you that we women are the ones who can speak about these uncomfortable conversations, that we can be head on at it, and it could be misconstrued differently. But I think the influence that we have as women, we have to also ensure that we are very cautious about it, and we can be constructive about feedback, in the same manner that we can inspire a lot of people that it is possible to get where we are right now. And it's just a matter of really the mindset, the how you could be skillful enough. Another thing that I also think that would work out well is you have to find a mentor or a role model, because that works. There was a study in Germany where they had a 6-month study of pretending to be Mozart, pretending to be the inventors of the society. And they had to think that way, not to think who they are. And there was also one activity that I did before. So idol ko before was si Oprah. So yung mindset na modeling behavior is an effective way in neurolinguistic programming when there's a model that you follow, diba? And you have to choose the people you're always with. The people you work with, of course, you have no option, but you have to work with a boss like this. You have to work with colleagues like that. But in this kind of network like PSTD, you have this opportunity to be inspired with a lot of people in the organization to help you. So, yun, importante yung modeling, finding the right tribe. If you don't have that tribe, then you have to choose. Kasi ang hirap naman na lagi kang, you will be working with toxic people. And likewise, if you're a woman, that should not stop you from dreaming and achieving what you want. It's not a matter of gender. It's a matter of how you would be able to really learn more and develop your competencies.
Yeah. How about you, Louie? Before we go into the questions and comments of our viewers, Louie, what do you have to say, or do you have a question for these two?
My reaction, not a question, but a reaction, Pearl, and to our guest. It's a good thing that in L&D or in talent development, I don't see that gap. No, I don't see an imbalance. No, while training is close to teaching, siguro sa teaching pa, di ba? Yung teaching profession mas stereotype na pambabae, no? Pero iniisip ko yung aking corporate experience sa training. Oo nga, no? All of the corporate training teams that I've been with would have a 50-50 or if it's not 50-50, a 60-40 combination and mix. Buti na lang as compared to siguro sales, and Fabi mentioned field sales may have a predominant tendency to prefer males. If you talk about admin work, yes, admin work has always been associated with females. So I'm in a good place where we can really talk about DEI.
Yeah. And also,
talent development, no? It's a good place for both males and females.
kasi yun din yung siguro tanong ko eh. Parang, is it well, an advantage that we are in an industry like town development and HR that's really commonly looked as pambabae. Yung HR, di ba, dapat pambabae yan eh. So, naturally, pati mga trainers, di ba, usually mga babae, ganyan, nasa talent development, babae. So, is it working to our advantage or hindi ba yun advantageous for us, di ba? Sabi nga ni Maribel, it's difficult to find career heroes inside the organization where there are also very few women executives. Parang may disparity ba doon sa HR? Oo nga, puro babae. Pero pagdating mo sa executive level, are we still having that advantage as women?
I'll give you some insight on that, no? The other day I was in a talk with Makati Business Club, and I showed them the statistics that from 1993 all the way to 2021, the population of the Philippines is almost equally divided between the males and the females. So you would think that in terms of the workforce, 50-50 then. Not the case. It was a 35 to 65 in favor of the men. And then I looked at the leadership, middle and senior leadership, it was even worse. It went all the way down to, I think, less than 20% women. The ratio was 5 to 13. 5 women to 13 male leaders. And this is not like a 1 or 2 or 3 years. It's from 1993 all the way to 2021. The numbers hardly ever changed. And it's sad when you look at it that way, because when you look at that data and see it as it is, no, because it makes you rethink about whether or not we're really making headway in terms of getting as many women into leadership positions as we should. There was a comment here on I think was it Maribel, that it's hard to find career heroes, and it's true. But you know what? From my experience, it's only because I didn't look for them hard enough. And there's also a bias as to who your career heroes can be within your organization. Oftentimes, you look for career heroes yung mas mataas sa'yo, right? Mas mataas sa'yo, mas tenured sa'yo, and so on. So that's what I mean when I say create those spaces. Kasi unless you create the space and invite people in, you wouldn't realize that there's somebody younger than you that actually has a better and more inspiring story than you. And all you need to do was bring them in, have them speak, invite them, have conversations with them, and then put them up into the limelight. And then people will say, I want to be that IT supervisor. Tingnan mo, babae siya in an all-male team, pero siya pa yung naunang na-promote. And it's possible pala. Sige, because I'm an IT graduate also, I will try and move from operations to the IT desktop team, and then make my way up the organization ladder like that. And this is why I think the contribution of women leaders is very critical in terms of that space creation. Women tend to be more community oriented. It's so not all women, but we tend to be more community oriented. And so it's almost natural for us to be looking for those spaces where people can come in and join and have that conversation, and then be discovered. But the act of intentionally discovering somebody has to be there. Kasi women are not made, or at least not conditioned, to just step up and say, hi, I'm here, I'm great. listen to me. Like Fabi said, no? When women do that, may iba na namang negative reaction kasi.
Be ka nga, beautiful, beautiful daw,
Sabi-
sabi ni Maribel.
Oo, diba? So we tend to shy away from that. So you need to tell them, there's space here, come.
Okay. May tanong dito sa chat, no? Galing kay Marby Tabungar. Are there technologies po in your companies that give the org insights on the state of DEI, or are you picking it up mostly based on observations? So very briefly, we only have around 8 minutes to address
Yeah.
these questions. Napaka-interesting kasi ng topic.
May isa pang
Well,
question si
every-
Marby, sana umabot tayo doon.
Parang
oo.
every weekend, nagtatagal tayo dahil talagang kulang ang oras.
Bitin na. oo.
Oo. So, Fabi, are there maybe apps or something that you use to measure the state of DEI?
There would be different ways depending on your budget. Of course, different organizations have different resources. And I come from a company that would be limited with resources. And I have been frugal with the way I would use my resources. No, I would suggest if you are just starting up, don't just go for the buzzword, what's out there, because it entails muna kasi buy-in from your leaders. So I think that you could do it on your own, have your own check-in surveys, and make it more of like a survey of finding out how people are, what they are, and you could see the demographics of these people. And that could be easily done by anyone, depending on what is the objective. You can start with that. Now, if you want to actually escalate the way you or improve the way you do things, and you're on a level that you have something existing, then I would say there are so many employee engagement systems that are out there that can actually partner with you and help you create questions and later on create initiatives, because these kinds of questions are supposed to be ways for you to make deliberate actions in terms of what's happening, to find out first what's currently happening, have a gap analysis, like a needs analysis, and thereby come up with initiatives, whether it's training, coaching, or any other interventions that are helpful for the organization. I always say that there is no one size fits all. You have to find out what works well for you. So you have to measure it first, then understand what is the baseline of your organization. Then the third part is proposing an action plan where you could measure it later on, just like how we measure training programs, its effectivity, and choose what are those top 3 programs that you could actually prioritize. Because, as I've said, lalo na if diversity and inclusion is something still new in your organization, you have to see what's in it for them, what's in it for the company, and what would be the cost with it. So I would say you can start small, simple, brief, and then from there you can create initiatives already.
Okay. How about Olive? Sa TP ba meron kayong software or app that you use to measure these statistics?
We always go back to the headcount report, no? And we've made some changes on our headcount report. Before kasi, so you have the names, the employee number, the usual data that you have for employees. But one thing I noticed is we captured, but we don't publish on a regular basis, like on a weekly basis when we publish the headcount report, is the gender, the tenure, and the generation. So if you look at the file, it wouldn't be easy for you to tell how many men, how many women. Okay, so that's one thing that we did. And all organizations, you have your employee data. You can just make this small change and make it easy for all the leaders to get a snapshot of where am I in terms of kahit diversity lang. One thing that we're working on right now is to include the SOGI. Of course, that's going to be a voluntary disclosure, but we've been, for the last 6 months, 7 months, we have been sending invites for self-disclosure only if they're comfortable. And unti-unti, makikita mo people are getting more comfortable and safe because unti-unti lumalaki yung nagse-self-declare, and then we can start adding it there. So
Yeah.
biologically male, but identity is female and whatnot. Then you can already see, am I as diverse as I would like to be? So yung mga ganun maliliit na tweaks, even like educational attainment or saan nakatira, saan provincial ba yan or lumaki sa big city, may ganun ka bang klase ng diversity nagaganap dyan na mo monitor.
Kailangan lang conscious tayo as
Conscious
HR, di ba? To include
Oo,
it in our
conscious lang talaga.
dashboards.
And then another siguro that I'd like to add is if you do have, like sabi nga ni Fabi, no, budget, malaking bagay yan. But if you do have surveys, like us, we engage in annual surveys, we just make sure that we talk to the vendor to put in questions there that are DE&I in nature. And then we monitor that year over year. And we also monitor pag may mga openings, sino yung mga nag-a-apply. May difference ba in terms of gender na mga nag-a-apply, in terms of their tenure, and so on. Nitingnan namin yan. Again, not to tell the leader, oy, bakit kulang yung nag-apply sa iyo na babae? It's not that. We just say, did you know that? And then they're like, I didn't know. Okay, now you know. I don't know what you want to do with it, but you know, that's a conversation that you may want to have. So ganun lang. Nothing earth-shattering. You don't need to boil the entire ocean in order to get things started.
Yeah. So we only have 3 minutes, but I want to address this question also by Marby. Parang tinatanong niya kasi, how do you build the competencies of employees when it comes to welcoming diversity? Kasi medyo, alam mo, sa Philippines, medyo hirap tayo nung ganun eh. We say we do, but definitely in our culture, hindi naman ganun pa-accepted yung welcoming diversity. So how do you train people on that?
Sa amin kasi, and as a personal practice, whenever I have every opportunity that I get, I show people how different they are. Oftentimes you say, no, you look for the similarities, but what we don't realize sometimes is that tayo mismo, we are different from the others in such a way that baka tayo, hindi natin alam, we can also be discriminated. And by putting them in that position na, oo nga no, I don't want to be discriminated just because I'm like a 56-year-old agent. Diba? Normally, pag 56 years old ka na, sabi mo, dapat medyo nasa management ka na. Pero, nga no, agent ako, lalaki nga ako, supposedly, you know, in a powerful gender. Pero 56 na ako, my age sets me apart. It makes me different. And are people treating me differently just because of that? And by pushing that in front of them, it makes them realize that yes, DE&I is very important. I would like to be heard too. I would like to be included in the conversations.
Sabi nga ni Georgie, it's much harder to train the people in the boardroom.
That's true. Oo.
So
malalaki ng sulo
aminin
nila.
natin. Aminin natin.
True. Okay, thank you. I mean, this was such an interesting conversation and we've learned a lot from these two beautiful and powerful women, very influential, and lagi na lang tayong kapos sa oras kasi sa sobrang interesting ang ating mga discussions dito. Sana ma-discuss din natin to maybe in one of the mga sessions natin sa PSTV, mga tipanan sessions. No? So, of course, in behalf of Usapang Training at iba pa, we'd like to thank our speakers, Ms. O, Olive Ybanez, and of course, the fabulous Fabi for gracing our show. Thank you very much. So, yan puro. So also thank you for everybody who like viewed today, went into Zoom. We appreciate you like watching us every week. Diba? Pang-pito na natin to. We're not yet sure kung magkakaroon ba tayo next week dahil mag-Holy Week na, but just monitor and look at the PSTD website and also our PSCD Facebook page and all our social media pages. for announcements for our next episode. So, any last words? We are 1 minute ahead. Okay, so AM, Ed, and Louie, any final words of goodbye?
Balik kayo. Yun ang ano ba, Ed? Balik kayo.
Oo, sabi ko
Tuloy
nga,
natin to.
sabi ko nga sa comment we barely scratched the surface of these
Correct,
ladies.
correct.
No, the talents that we have here with Olive and Fabi. Siguro naman di kayo tatanggi kung invitahin namin kayo uli on other topics of talent
Oo.
development. Tambay uli dito sa
Of
ayun.
course,
So,
anytime.
ayun.
pleasure.
Naka-record yan, naka-record.
Okay.
Sige.
Okay. So Louie, any final words of goodbye?
Para sa akin, isa na namang B. Bitin. Bitin ang B ko, ang B word ko.
Okay. So thank you everybody.
Last
Have
picture
a
daw, sabi ni
nice- Ay, oo
Norman.
nga.
Dalawang beses na nag-chat.
Sorry.
Ito na, Norman. Ito
Pa-open
na.
naman ang inyong mga cameras and let's take a groupie.
Ayan.
Okay. Hi, open naman ang mga camera. Maribel, para mo makita ka namin.
Underlighted ako.
Ay, okay. All right. So, Norman, ikaw magbigay ng signal.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you,
Hey,
everyone.
good evening, everyone.
We hope
Maraming
to see
salamat.
you in the future episodes. Thank you, Fabi, and thank you, Miss O.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a
Happy
great Sunday.
weekend.
Bye.